Hey there, it's Simon Hurley, and I'm Ranger's newest signature designer here at Scrapbook.com, and I'm super excited to share some really awesome projects and ideas using my new Simon Hurley Create product line. So in this lesson, I'm going to share how my inks stamp, using some of the awesome images from some of my stamp sets to create some really cool stamped effects on your cards. So I'm going to start off by sharing a gradient stamped background that's pretty simple, but really shows off how well these inks stamp on your cards. So I'm going to be using this solid dude image from the Dudes 2 stamp set. I just love this one, and I hand wrote some of these sentiments in here, so it's a really fun and kind of playful style to stamp with. So I'm starting off with bee sting, and I'm just going to go over top of the stamp to ink it up. And I love these clear stamps because you can make sure you've got lots of ink on there before you go to stamp. So I'm just going to press that down right onto the surface there. Then I'll lift it up. And then I'm going to move my sentiment down just a little bit. I'll stamp that down. And I really love how it creates a secondary image. But if you go down even a third time, you can create a lighter red color there. And I love how my inks kind of create 3 different colors. So you get almost 3 colors out of one ink pad, which is really awesome. So depending on how much you stamp, you can use different stamp layering sets or some cool solid images like this sentiment to repeat them and create some cool background designs. Once you're done stamping, my inks clean off really easily with water. So if you just add a little bit of water to your stamp, then you can kind of blot it off there. And this is super nice because once you're done creating, your stamp isn't going to be stained by my inks. And I know that a lot of people don't like their clear stamp stained, so this is the perfect ink for you. Then I'll go kind of in rainbow order. Here I'm going to take slippery and wet. I'm going to ink up that stamp, and then I can stamp this right down onto the surface there. I'm going to move down just a little bit from where I stamped, kind of overlapping it just a little bit. I'll stamp that yellow down. I'll move it down, stamp it again, and then I can move it one more time and stamp it down again. And again, there's that gradient. That lighter yellow is super light down there, but you can see those 3 different tones of color that it gives, and I love that effect. And there you have that really fun background full of those sentiment images, and this is going to be the main sentiment for our card, but I love creating a background with it too because it kind of ties everything together. Now to finish off this card, I'm going to use this just as a little stripe for my card. So I'll bring it right into a trimmer. I'll trim right along the side of that sentiment. So that's just going to create a nice little stripe that we can add right to our card as a little background and kind of focal point of interest. So now I'm going to be using another image from my Dudes 2 stamp set. This one I've stamped the guy kind of hanging off the edge of the card, and then I've stamped another different variety of a head on top of the image. So you can kind of interchange those together to create some cool looks. And I've stamped this on to the smooth side of a Ranger watercolor cardstock, so it's going to take my watercoloring really nicely. So I'm just going to go in here with my color, and like I did in the last lesson, I'm just going to make a palette of colors on my craft sheet here, and then I'm able to easily pull those colors in as I'm watercoloring. If I want a lighter version of the color, so here I'm taking bee sting and I want it just a little bit lighter, I can take it with a little bit of water right from my mat and just apply that all over my image here. And that's going to make it super easy to get that same wash of color throughout as I'm coloring in his little shirt here. To make sure this isn't going to bleed, I'll bring in my heat tool here to quickly heat set this before I move on to the next step. I'm going to add a little bit of a design to his shirt, so I'll go back into that darker red bee sting color, and I'm just going to go in and create stripes here. So that's really easy to do when you dry in between the layers. You can bring in more of that color and create a really awesome pattern for his shirt. Then I'll just finish off by going in with Remember Me for the jeans to create a nice light blue wash there. And then to color in the little white envelope that I'm using, I'll go in with a little bit of woof, and that's that lighter gray color, and just add a little bit of gray to whatever area. Even if it's white, adding gray is going to make it look more 3D and more realistic on your card. To finish off this card, I'm going to stamp my sentiment, so I'm using that same dude stamp, and I'll do this in archival jet black ink. So I'll ink up my stamp, and then I can stamp this right down onto my card. And I'm using a Wendy Vecchi top folding card base, and this is in the perfect gray color. I really love these to add to the card, and it just adds another color to your cardstock. And to finish off this sentiment, from the Dudes 2 stamp set, there was a couple of sentiments you can go along with different occasions on your card. For this one, I'm just going to use the sentiment, I made you a card. So I'm just going to peel that off of the backer sheet, and I love clear stamps because they're great for storage. And then you can just apply them to an acrylic block, and they're really ready to stamp, and then you can put them back in your package once you're done. So I'll ink that up, and then I can stamp this right down onto my card. And then I'm going to take this little strip of piece of paper that we've created with that background. I'll apply a little bit of tape runner to the back, and then I can add it right to the surface of my card. So when I'm doing this, I like to start from the top, and I'm going to adhere it there, and that makes it super easy to line up with the edge. And if you have any excess at the bottom, you could totally cut it off there as well. Then I'm going to use some of the clear foam tape from Ranger. This is in their Letter It line. And I love this foam tape because when you put it behind the images, you're not going to see it as much. So I'm just going to grab my image here, and I've cut a few pieces of the foam tape already. And this just makes it super simple to add to the back of your image. And this will make it stand up on your card if you want a little extra dimension. So if you want some smaller pieces, it's easy to just cut down and then place right onto your card. Then all you have to do is peel off the backing to this adhesive, and I'm going to place it right on the side of the card. And then I'm going to grab the little envelope image that goes along with it, and I'll add this right down onto the card just with some adhesive. And so that little envelope goes right along with that Dude, I Made You a Card sentiment. And I just love how that kind of finishes it off, and this little guy hangs off the edge there with that colorful background that we've stamped there. Now I'm also going to share how to do some cool gradient stamping with my ink as well to get awesome variegated images like this. So I'm going to go in with my Flower Garden background stamp here. Now I love this stamp because it's got that solid image, so you don't need to go in and color this. It's great for techniques like this, or if you're stamping with water and things like that. So I'll flip this over, and then to do my stamping here, I'm going to take my Slippery When Wet ink pad, and I'm going to go in. I use the corner of my ink pad to just add a little bit of ink here, right in the center. And then once I'm done with that, I'm going to go in with Bee Sting and go right around the edges. And I kind of roll this ink pad on there, again, kind of with the edge of my ink, and then blend it together using that Slippery When Wet color. Now when doing this, your red can totally go over top of the Slippery When Wet. It's not going to contaminate it as you're stamping. You just want to make sure that if you use the Slippery When Wet color, which is lighter than Bee Sting, that you really don't touch the pad together of that ink. Otherwise, it might get a little bit stained and kind of contaminate your color. Now, I totally don't worry about what's around the image. I just want this flower that's right in the center there. So I'll go in with a piece of my stark white cardstock. I'm going to press it down, give some good pressure so that ink transfers nicely. And then I can lift that right off the surface, and you can see that really awesome gradient image that we have there. Now, don't worry about whatever's outside of this. You can totally cut that out and apply it to your card like normal. So again, this is super easy to clean off. I'm just going to go in and spray a little bit of water, and then I can go in with a paper towel and blot that off of the image, and it's totally clean and ready to stamp again. Now for the leaves, I'll go in here with Overzealous, which is that lighter green color, and I'll ink up whichever leaves I want to use for my card. And then I can go in with Later Gator and add a little bit of that darker green to the inside edge of those leaves. So it's really easy to just use the edges of your ink pad to tap on some of that color and create some cool variated images. So there you go, you have those awesome leaves you can use. And again, it looks a little bit messy on here, but we're going to cut those out to create some awesome images. So since this is a background stamp, I'm going to go in with a scissors here and just quickly cut out these images. It's pretty easy to do that since they're bold images with not too much detail. So you can just go right along the edge or even do a little bit of a white border around with them as well. Now to do this, I just use a little scissors, and instead of moving the scissors, I move the cardstock along with the direction of my cutting, and that's going to make it a little bit smoother as you're cutting this image out. Now to finish off the backgrounds and add a little bit more detail, I'm going to use the Painted Lines background stamp from my Simon Hurley Create line. I love this one because it's super simple, but these lines are kind of a little bit jagged and not super neat, which I love for backgrounds like this. So I'm going to go in with my Woof ink pad, There's that nice gray color. And this is a 6x6 stamp, so you could put it horizontally or vertically on your card with your stripes. And you don't need to ink up the whole stamp. I'm just inking the side that I'm going to be using here. I'll put down a perfect card base. This is the Perfect Gray from Wendy Vecchi. And then when I lift this up, you've got that really awesome background with that gray on top of the gray, so kind of a tone on tone. And I just love how simple this is, but kind of elegant for a floral card like this. And then to finish off the card, I can take some of the images that I stamped, so like this flower image, I'll add a little piece of foam tape to that, and then I can add it right onto my card. So here I'll place that down, and then you can take leaves as well. I'm just going to take a piece of this clear foam tape, and then I can stick it right down to my leaf, and then add it right onto my card here. And you could totally cut out a bunch of the images from the background stamp and create a whole scene like I did on this card, kind of a bundle of flowers there. You can see I got that flower, the little one, and then some of the leaves from the stamp as well. So you can see in this card I used a couple more of the images here. So I've got this large floral, that little one from the set, and some of those leaves as well to finish off that card. And then to tie it all together, I added a little sentiment that says, "Thanks for being the bestest friend ever." And this is from my Bestest Friends stamp set. So this has a bunch of different critters on it, but I love the sentiments in here because they're very encouraging and you can use them for lots of different occasions, whether it's a fun and playful card or a more sentimental card like this one with the flowers on it. I cannot wait to see what you guys create with my new Simon Hurley Create line with Ranger, so be sure to upload your pictures to the gallery. I'll see you guys for the next lesson. Thanks for watching. If you liked this video and want to see more from Scrapbook.com, please like, share, subscribe, and leave a message. Happiness is life handmade.